Hello, my name is Emma. Five Nights at Freddy's has been somewhat of a constant in my life since 2015. I may have not actively participated in the fandom at all times, but I always side-eyed what it was doing from the cool kid sideline. When something you like becomes cringe, it's easier to play along instead of being a weirdo, okay? Especially when you're in your early teens, okay? I've talked extensively about this franchise throughout videos and even in a dedicated 30-minute long rant. In that video, I went over some of the many things I didn't like about this game's storyline and things I'd personally do differently. In the end, I talked about one of the most recent installments of this series, Security Breach and Ruin. Listen, I don't hate Security Breach. There are a lot of things I find innovative and interesting within this game and DLC. The story, however, is, to put it lightly, half-baked. I know people have talked about the problems with Security Breach ad nauseum at this point. So many aspects have plenty of flaws that I will go over, though I will try not to be too redundant in this video, at least to the best of my abilities. My personal biggest gripe with this game is that it's not that scary, and I've said this before. In my opinion, it just barely makes it for that horror tag to be justified. There's a lot of sides to this thought to consider, we will get to, because I think this situation is the farthest from black and white, so if you're a Security Breach fan or a fan of this new generation of Five Nights at Freddy's, I will try to consider both sides to these problems. In my Problems with FNAF Lore video, I mentioned an idea for a concept reimagining Security Breach in a totally different direction, bringing back some of those lost elements while also adding some additional concepts that I think would improve this storyline overall. That concept was a passing thought that began to build in my mind, and I'm really excited to explore these ideas more. This will not be the same Security Breach with new character designs. I'm going to take this basic concept and completely flip it around. At present, this will be the first part. I believe I will be making more of this since there's a lot more characters and aspects that I can't fit in one video, so for now, we will just be going over the main four animatronics. Now, I'm not a game designer. I don't know how many of my ideas will be feasible in an actual video game. I'm just pitching ideas that I'd personally find more interesting. If you like Security Breach the way it is, I think you are completely valid. Keep enjoying what you enjoy. Don't let me stop you. I'm not perfect. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. This is just an exercise for fun, so don't take anything I say too seriously. This video actually proved to be a lot more challenging than I had envisioned. You know what else is challenging? Keeping track of your OCs. We'll say goodbye to that problem with today's sponsor, Unvale. Unvale is a social media platform focused on artists sharing and connecting over a shared love of OCs. If you're anything like me, you know the brain capacity original characters can take. They live rent-free. It can be hard to keep track of all the little details all the time, especially when you have so many like me. Thankfully, with Unvale, you can easily document and categorize your characters with their sleek system. Creating character profiles allows you to write and share your character's backstory and juicy lore. There's even a list of traits including age, sexuality, hobbies, and so much more. Additionally, if the presets aren't cutting it for you, you can add your own custom traits to fit whatever you're going for. You can even change the color of character profiles to fit them perfectly. Making these profiles always helps me find more details I hadn't even thought about my characters before. Unvale is filled with an uplifting community ready to boost you up with welcoming arms. Everyone is so positive, it's really nice. If you'd like to check out Unvale, you can click the link in my description. It's free to join and you can even follow me on there. Thank you, Unvale, and let's get on with the video. For this redesign, I took so much inspiration from real-life animatronic franchises like Chuck E. Cheese and the Rockafire Explosion, and I suppose Aaron Fetcher's army of characters, but honestly, I'm scared of this man, so he can go.
You need to leave!
I think one of the problems with later Five Nights at Freddy's iterations is the lack of thought when it comes to the places and animatronics functioning normally outside of what we see in the game, which is almost always after hours or abandoned. You'd think that shouldn't be a concern since the focus isn't what happens when the Pizzaplex is up and running, but I'd argue that's one of the most important things to consider when you're building this world up. How does this place run? One of the main draws is the animatronics, but the Pizzaplex is so huge, I'd imagine it'd be hard to see one of, 6 characters? And I would say there's so few animatronics because of cost. I'm sure it would be hard to keep running an army of complex robots and, oh yeah, there's so many everywhere. A big thing with world building and storytelling is structure rules. What are the limitations with this world? And this security breach arc doesn't seem to have many limitations. It just kind of does whatever it wants. Okay, Emma, it's a video game. Who the hell cares? I care. I see the scale of the Pizzaplex to not only be a problem in the game's universe, but also with the game as well. They went hard. I see what they were doing though. And I'll admit, seeing the Pizzaplex for the first time was a big wow moment for me. I just don't think they utilized it in the best way. Because there are only 3 main threats, Monty, Roxy, and Chica, in this humongous place, you end up not seeing that much of them, and they end up not being that much of a problem. The security bots end up being more of an annoyance than the actual animatronics we're focusing on. And in the first versions of the game, Vanny, the main villain, would barely show up. The scale of the building, in my opinion, lowers the stakes for the player. It just doesn't feel that intense when there's only a small amount of threats coming after you in this gigantic mall. So for my version of Security Breach, I'm changing the setting pretty significantly. I want this place to be an amusement park of sorts, with inside but primarily outside activities. This is no Disney World, okay? This place is kinda crappy. It's got bumper cars, mini golf, go-karts, even an indoor roller rink and arcade, but that's about it. It's pretty small. Funding went to the expensive robots, you know? I want the whole park to be enclosed by a secure wall surrounding the whole thing. 1, to make sure no animatronics can leave or be stolen, and 2, so no children can leave the park undetected without supervision. And you know, the balance of the game, doy. This setting will also no longer be in the future. I put it back in time, probably dating around the 2000s. So lore-wise, this place would be a reboot of sorts. I think something like this could fit in the FNAF timeline, even though it is a convoluted mess. I've seen more squeezed in there. Alright. This also brings back more vintage elements and the crappy place to bring your kids thing. I'm channeling some parks and quote amusement parks I've been to that have not lived up to expectations. Like, I've been to this one place where it was advertised as a funland, and to be fair, it had a really cool arcade, but there was probably 3 rides in total. That's the vibe I'm trying to go for here. FNAF was always something nostalgic and familiar to a lot of people. That's a big reason it was unsettling in the first place. I think one of the biggest misses with Security Breach was the devs' drive to make something that looked really good, polished, and different. Something we never saw before. But in reality, you didn't need to do anything like that with this franchise. We've never had a walk-around game until this point. They could have taken older elements that made the other games great because players only had, and still have, only a small window into this world. A game like this could have been a closer and more immersive view into what most fans want to see. I just think they ended up biting off more than they could chew, and it unfortunately affected the quality of the game greatly. I think there has been improvement, however. The new Help Wanted is actually really nice with really cool visuals, even though some of them confuse me, like, where the hell is this place supposed to be in the Pizzaplex? I feel like this does not fit at all. But I do think Help Wanted is more geared towards older fans, so it's nice to see. Alright, who's ready for Freddy? I want to start this out by saying I really enjoy the Glamrocks. I think they're extremely well designed characters and without the context of FNAF are really cool. But when you add back the context, they start to fall apart a bit for me. Okay. Hear me out. Security Breach takes place in the future. Sure, it's basically modern day because this universe is so technologically advanced. Modern day is basically Blade Runner. But the main goal of animatronics in entertainment is to create something as realistic and believable as possible. You aren't supposed to look at this band and think that's a robot. You're supposed to be immersed enough into believing this could be a real band of animals performing in front of you. Now, I'm not saying everyone is tricked into thinking this, but the creator's goal is to make something believable to the audience, which are usually children. So, if we are so advanced in technology, these should look like real cartoon characters, no exposed joints or shiny exteriors. If we apply this logic to this universe, they shouldn't look like robots. And yes, it's clear the animatronics have advanced in their AI and communication features, since these robots are basically sentient. However, I feel that because they lean towards the AI and sci-fi aspect of these animatronics, it loses what made a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's games scary in the first place. The poor and uncanny imitation of life. I feel like the designers of Security Breach forgot real-world input that could make this game feel more immersive. So, unfortunately, I can't see Five Nights at Freddy's being in a modern setting as a good idea at all. Especially when this fad died off many years ago in real life. There's no more bands playing in pizza places anymore. This kind of concept just feels so inherently vintage. And Security Breach, as I said, has very marketable designs, which are gauged to FNAF's younger audience. FNAF is a kids franchise nowadays, even if it can be enjoyed by older people. Yes, it has dark elements, but it never crosses that line into extreme gore or excessive violence, and it never did. I think a lot of older fans who want the games to be darker forget that. I just want all of you to be aware that I know this isn't that serious, but when redesigning, it's important to analyze all these elements. Now let's explain Freddy. So my main inspiration for complexions in these guys was Creative Studios animatronics. They had a heyday in the 70s and 80s with a very distinct and interesting style. I'll just say these designs didn't age well in the best way possible. The off-putting expressions, overuse of wrinkles, and a very jerky movement style is something I'd like to emulate in my own designs. These guys also do not look great without proper care over the years. Oh. Which is a great reference for a ruin concept. I took a lot of inspiration from 80s and 90s patterns. I'm not used to drawing stuff like this. Anthropomorphic characters are hard, especially when you're trying to do them semi-realistically, but I think I pulled it off to the best of my abilities. I hope to improve. I focused a lot on the story and park elements. I really tried to put myself in the shoes of someone trying to create a successful business with marketable characters, merchandise, all that kind of stuff. I'd imagine Fazbear Funland is modernized for kids, but the characters in place are marketed to parents as nostalgia bait. I think the animatronics are going to be reused from previous establishments to cut cost. I wanted each character to have a little thing about them that could be their special feature, so each character has a special smell and action. Freddy smells like confetti cake and can blow confetti out of his ears. He is the most hugged character, so his fur and clothing needs cleaning more than other characters. Freddy's personality is much more fatherly than in the game, if that makes sense. I'd imagine he'd have a southern accent and would be really friendly with the kids. The AI is not great on the animatronics though. They can acknowledge when someone is there, but their conversation is limited and somewhat distant. The robots have a time schedule that they follow every day, which includes meet and greets, performances, and activities with the children. Freddy looks after the arcade, and him, like the others, are used as security for the park. After hours and on off seasons, employees emulate animatronic schedules so they maintain proper working order. In order for them to enact interacting with people, they set out dummies to trick the robots into thinking they are talking to real children, and they basically just go through their day with no one there. I really wanted this place to be majority outside because there's something so unsettling about animatronics who aren't weathered correctly being in those environments. Being exposed to the elements doesn't usually treat these robots well, and it's something the creators always fail to foresee. Like, man, the Yeti, bad shape. 20,000 leagues, oof. That kind of stuff freaks me out. I think this could lead to some really unsettling erosion to these animatronics that could feel really real. Even though these are reused robots, there is no remnant. I am a hater. I don't like this in the lore. There will be some murder elements though, and I'll explain that later. Here's Freddy. I think he's my favorite. I know my designs are de-assifying them, but that's not the point of this. The point is not to make them hot. I'm side-eyeing some of you. I'm just kidding. They're gonna be a little ugly, okay? For Roxy, I wanted to give her a very Sandy from Grease inspired outfit. I feel like in the 70s and 80s, Grease had a grip on pop culture. I think Roxy originally was more 50s inspired, but with the new Fazbear Funland rebrand, she was given more 80s elements. Roxy is still a bit arrogant, like in the games, but their personalities won't come through as strong anymore since they're gonna be a little more lifeless, kind of like a Furby. Roxy looks after Roxy's Raceway, which consists of bumper cars and go-karts. There's a place like that in Security Breach, but this one will not be that extravagant. If I ever do another part, I'd love to explore some background imagery, even if it's not my strong suit. I kept as much as I could to still identify her as Roxy, but also, changed a lot. I think the R on her shirt is perfect for her character. She's self-obsessed, so she'd wear clothing with her letter, but it's also very 50s core at the same time. Bubblegum is her feature. I feel like for these characters' toys, they'd have these mechanics also. Like the plushies would smell and blow confetti out of their ears or blow bubblegum. That would just be so cute. Imagine actual merch like that. Ooh! Roxy will also have bubblegum to hand out from one of the park's sponsors. It's common in places like Disney World for sponsors to have their own products in a ride or in the park, so I thought that would be another layer of interest. I've also been getting into Fallout. I know there's a lot of flaws with this franchise, but one thing they really do well is world building and building out these brands and products. But I am a new Fallout fan, don't bully me. I got freaking 2 strikes. I'm a woman, and I just claim to be a Fallout fan, and I've never played a game. Guys, am I cooked? Now, I want to mention the murders still happened in this universe, but it has been a while since that's happened. This company is trying to distance themselves from their scary past and trying to bring family fun back. Though, one thing about Fazbear Entertainment is that it always goes sideways at some point. I feel like she'd be really fast when she needs to be. That's a fun thought. Monty was one I knew I wanted to look unhinged. In the original Security Breach, he is portrayed as one of the most violent and unstable characters in the game. So making him look really off-putting was my goal. I don't like him. So Monty's spot was originally filled by Bonnie, just like in Security Breach, but for my version, I don't want it to be implied that Monty destroyed or killed Bonnie. I think upper management noticed an uptick in kids losing interest in the park, especially older kids. All the animatronics were kiddie and lame, so they decided they needed a character with a little more edge. but they couldn't afford to add a whole other system to the mix, so they took the least popular character and retired him. Where Bonnie is, no one knows. He could be in storage, he could have been destroyed. All that to say, Monty came in and things changed, but not necessarily for the better. I wanted my Monty to have a clear punk inspiration. I thought it fit him really well, and unlike Freddy, he is the least hugged character. Monty is another reused animatronic, but because he was implemented to drive up more foot traffic, he was given the most advanced features. Monty is the most unstable, as I said, so he glitches out more often. This has led to incidents with children like almost stepping on one, almost falling over on a crowd, and even a bite. But the older kids find him cooler because of it, and the mystique of Freddy's adds to this interest. So even though management is seeing red flags, they ultimately look the other way. Monty blows smoke out of his mouth and smells like mint. He blows smoke out of his mouth because in the 70s and 80s there was a cigarette sponsor for Fazbear Entertainment. Monty would hand out candy cigarettes to the children, but that's not acceptable anymore, so Monty's smoke is kind of ambiguous. Some people even mistake him for a dragon because of it. Monty is the most advanced, so he has the most complex conversation with others and is arguably the most intelligent, which in turn makes him act out more. This guy freaks me out. I don't like him. I don't like him. I have the clearest picture in my head for Chica. Women's activewear, classic 80s attire. You look up 80s Halloween costume, that's what you're getting. She's probably my least favorite out of all the designs I've done though. I'll be honest, she was the last character I drew and I was feeling a little burnt out, but I think I still pulled through. I think she needs another pass, but for right now, it's fine. Chica's personality is bubbly and sweet. She promotes being active to the children and to eat their vegetables. She has dance classes with the kids at the roller rink as well as exercising. Chica can produce bubbles and hands out her own Chica the Chicken branded bubbles. Chica used to smell like cotton candy, but children of late have complained of another smell coming from the suit. It was rotten. It made most customers avoid the animatronic altogether. For Chica's section, I want to talk more about the storyline and hypothetical gameplay from my version of Security Breach, but to run down, if you don't know, Five Nights at Freddy's major storyline takes place around the serial killer William Afton, or Purple Guy, who killed children and stuffed them into animatronic suits. The children haunt the suits, and that's the scary. I'm joking, but genuinely, this is a genius concept. Afton later gets spooked by the ghosts of the children he killed and jumps into the suit he murdered them in, only for it to glitch and spring lock him inside. He died and became Springtrap. The character has the iconic line, "I always come back," which this franchise has taken way too literally over the years. In Security Breach, he comes back. Surprise, surprise! The fans lovingly deem this iteration of Springtrap as Peepaw Afton. Now, this is years and years away. I mean, we're in 2023? And the original murders happened in the 80s. This guy just won't quit. Now, if you hadn't guessed it already, I don't like this. Look, I love the concept of this character, and the early ideas that came out of Scott Cawthon's mind, he was cooking. I do not need William Afton to come back in some form in every game, whether it be in AI form, augmented reality, implementing himself into someone else, passing the torch to someone else. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
Go to the light, Peepaw. It's okay. So, if I don't want William Afton to come back, literally in my concept, what could I possibly do to have the murder still happen? Well, I thought of something that happens too much in real life. Imitation killers. Media has sensationalized a lot of murders. A lot of times, the killer was more of a focus than the victims involved. This has led to people idolizing these killers and even copying their heinous crimes. With the way FNAF is presented, this kind of thing would probably be a major concern. A lot of people would probably go to this park just because of the murders, no matter how much the company wanted to distance themselves from it. Even in-universe, the murders are heavily sensationalized, with Fazbear Fright, a horror attraction based on the murders. I think a masked killer would begin to emulate Afton, but this time she wouldn't get caught. She was smart. She started with the same animatronic William did, Chica.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But that was just the beginning. The murderer wasn't as smart as she thought, though, and the police did catch up. The park shut down before it could become too big of a problem. The company hoped to reopen as soon as possible once this blew over. This never came to be. The public, again, wanted nothing to do with this brand. The park was barricaded off, no one could get in or out. Upkeep kept up for a few years, but eventually it became abandoned completely. But the animatronics were still in there. They left dummies out for them to interact with. They still keep their same schedule, watching over the park, singing, teaching classes, doing activities, just with no one around. Of course, this would be in modern times of 2024, after the park has closed for a long time. This will be my version of the Ruin DLC. But to take it back to Security Breach, I think for gameplay in my version, you will play as a child. Only there is more of a threat because Vanny is there actively seeking to get you. The gameplay would vary between during hours, after hours, involving puzzles and exploring different sections of the Funland. However, you're not playing Gregory. For the 5 nights of this game, you will play through the eyes of a different child with a different story. The last child you play will determine your outcome. In the original Security Breach, there's multiple endings which are frankly terrible. Don't get me started on those comic book pages. I do like the idea of multiple player endings though. This was the best thing I came up with for this concept. If y'all have any other ideas, I'd love to know. I feel like the Ruin DLC in my version would follow a maintenance worker instead who maybe had some history with the place. That could be kind of interesting, huh? The maintenance team was sent to restore and rebuild the broken animatronics for auction. I feel like this would lead to a lot of my favorite mini games in FNAF. I love these games so much. Here's Chica. I like her alright. She needs a bit of tweaking though. This was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about non-humanoid characters, let me tell ya. If you want me to go into more of this redesign, I will definitely do that. I would love to touch on Vanny more.
You want to touch on her?
I feel like she had so much potential, it just wasn't living up to expectations at all. There's a lot more to cover. I got ideas for the sun and moon, let me tell you. I also had an excuse to use my purple guy sprites again. How fun. Let me know which character was the most freaky to you. For me, it's Monty. I don't like him. Thank you so much for the support. Like, share, subscribe, and as always, peace.